Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to Geek Fruit Retcon, where we travel back in time to a previous episode from our inglorious history on the Geek Fruit Podcast. Happy listening, you nerds. Ahoy, you nerds.
Hello. Wait, you were talking to me, right?
Well, sure. Ahoy, Dinkar.
Ahoy! How do you do, Jishnu?
I am quite grand. Welcome to Geek Fruit. This week, once again, we are sans Tejas. It happens. More and more frequently of late.
Well, the universe is being a little unfair to him. He was sick, then he was sick again, and, now he's playing a show, so...
Now he's very busy doing exciting things. He is en route to Shillong to play the NH7 Weekender Festival, so actually, if you happen to be there, you should go check him out.
All our fans in Shillong.
All of the Shillong Geek Fruit fans.
Yeah.
He
is hopefully planning to, and I begged him to do it, end his set with Shillong and thanks for all the fish.
All right. Thanks for that. So, we have a lot to get through today. To begin with, we have a couple of emails, and I don't know how we possibly could have done this, but last week somehow we missed, or rather we forgot to mention an email from Emil's Meal.
Oh.
Yeah. So, a couple of weeks ago, we had an episode on Luke Cage, which I'm sure you must be aware of, because it was a pretty big one. So just to quickly go through a couple of points that Emil brought up, he says, big props to you guys on watching the complete show in a few hours for us fans. Salute and respect. Why, thank you very much.
Yeah, feels so nice to be appreciated.
I know, right? It never happens. Here are a few things I liked and disliked about the show. Luke and Jessica have an interesting mutual problem. This was so strange, but after Luke sees Reva's file, I realized something common from Jessica Jones. Just like Jessica was under manipulative authority of Kilgrave, Luke was in a way manipulated by Reva to be an experiment. In a way helping him to be the powerful man that he is in his current state.
Yeah,
fair
absolutely
point.
True.
Absolutely true.
This reminds me, though, something that I neglected to mention in our Luke Cage episode is Jessica Jones gets a mention somewhere right at the top from Pop, where he goes like, "Hey, wasn't that your rebound chick?" And I was like, "No, that hurts. Why? Jessica was great." And yeah, I mean, sure, they can't be together because, well, she killed his wife and blah, 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 blah. Spoiler alert. Yeah. But still, rebound chick? Or, no, did he say rebound chick or side
Something
chick?
like that.
Something equally hurtful,
I think
basically.
Rebound, yeah.
I feel for you, Jessica. And also, Reva, man, I felt like that should have been way more impactful than it was.
What should have been?
When he finds out that she was basically scamming him the entire time, manipulated him.
Yeah.
And he goes like,
See,
give me 5 minutes.
This was a big thing to my point about, like, my not being terribly impressed with Mike Coulter.
Yeah.
Just in his performance, just because, like, he wasn't as diverse with his dynamics in the performance.
Yeah.
You know, like, his highs and lows weren't too far apart.
Yes.
Emotionally. Like, he was just pretty much the same for the most part. Anyway, moving on. Emil says that Mariah Dillard was a very weak ace in the hole. I know she has the power just like Mama Mabel, but she does not have the swagger, however, of Cottonmouth in his few episodes. I agree with Dinkar about Cornell having similar traits to Stringer Bell from The Wire.
Which you don't understand at all,
I wouldn't have a clue, so I'm going to brush right past that. I wish they kept Cottonmouth alive for a few episodes. I'm sure so does everybody else. Especially when you have someone like Shades, a.k.a. Hernan Alvarez, sounds like somebody from Bandra, and Mariah. Those two played their roles like the weakest hand in poker. It was not until Willis came to the rescue who was also not the best fit, as he was someone who jumped out of nowhere after Cottonmouth's death. Absolutely.
Yes.
The last few episodes did lack some juice. Yep, we all agree. And one of the lowest points being Mariah and Shades kissing. Very true. Incredibly cringe, kind of random, and we know that they're basically going to end up stabbing each other in the back at some point. Maybe not even in the back, probably in the face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that little... I don't know if you can technically even call it a romance. It was just more...
It was a shady situation is what it was.
It was just more like just sexual tension for
was it even
some
that?
random
it seemed
reason.
Like creepy enforced because like
Shades
always had this look where he was like,
Yeah.
Like the entire time.
He's always undressing you with his eyes. That's why he's wearing shades.
To everyone, by the way.
pretty
Not just
much.
Mariah.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so then he just says, great selection of music, as we all thought and agreed upon. He has one little fun fact about Iron Fist, however. Is it ironic that Finn Jones, who played Loras Tyrell, is the lead of the show? Because in Game of Thrones, he was known as the Knight of Flower of our Tyrell. Is that sounds like a typo?
He's called the Knight of Flowers, I believe.
Knight of Flower of our Tyrell? Of House Tyrell.
Of
That
House
is a typo.
Tyrell,
That is a
yes.
typo. Okay. Their sigil also has the colors of green and yellow, which matches Iron Fist. So
Interesting.
Fun fact. Well,
I think this is a side effect of the fact that there's so much stuff happening, there's so much stuff coming out, that there's bound to be overlap. Like Mariah Dillard also being another unnamed character in the MCU.
Do you think that that was a genuine oversight? Or do you think Marvel knew what they were doing? They were just like, she's too good, we'll put them in both. Because it's well known that there is kind of a disparate lack of communication between the MCU and the TV universe.
I think that's what happened. So basically, the TV guys didn't know that she was cast.
So you think she was just walking on set and she's like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I might not get a job if I say anything?
Just be cool, Alfred.
Yeah, like, I have a 13-episode contract. This is amazing. It's going to really help my career a hell of a lot more than that bit part in Civil War.
I guess
so. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
She's such a fantastic actress. Yeah, there was too small a part. Though she brought some emotion to it in the 30 seconds she had.
Yeah, right.
But I think basically they found out too late to change it. I think they could have changed it for the TV one, and they were like, "It's cool. She's good enough."
It's also it's very likely that she filmed that part in Civil War eons ago.
Yeah.
And before Civil War came out, she was already neck deep into filming.
Yes.
Luke Cage.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the audience also wouldn't have sort of seen her in Civil War and been like, why are you filming in Netflix? That makes no sense.
And it's not so prominent a part that you'd miss it. Like, you didn't realize until much later, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's cool. And come on, it's the MCU. We're cool with everything else that happens, but two people look alike and we're like, hey, come on.
All right. So we have one more email from Sanket, who says, please try to make an episode on manga, comics, or anime. Probably on the more popular ones such as Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Attack on Titan, etc., etc. This is something that's come up a bunch, actually. We've had a fair few number of people tweet at us and email at us saying that they want to hear an episode on this. And I agree completely, and I think we all do, because everybody at Geek Fruit knows that anime and manga is probably our biggest weakness.
Yes.
I am personally completely useless at this. I've only seen Howl's Moving Castle, and that's just barely. And when I mean just barely, one, it was over like 7 years ago, and two, I think I was drunk. Yeah. So I don't remember really anything.
And it's not the same as these super involved series like Naruto and your Death Note and whatnot.
I would love to get into it. It's just I watched a little bit of Dragon Ball Z, a tiny bit of Dragon Ball Z when I was in school. But now, especially because of Geek Fruit and because of things like Luke Cage popping up, and now with the fall season of TV shows coming back, and all these movies that we need to watch, I don't have time to like start down a new
Which is true.
avenue.
I think anime you get in like early on because you have to go all in.
Right.
There's so much there.
Absolutely.
So on a personal level, all of us are a little weak on the anime and manga front. But it's an interesting subject also because the way anime works is maybe the way we should see India going, where we have a lot of homegrown content that that uses our stories and mythology and whatnot, but gives it a contemporary spin, which is what a lot of anime and manga is.
Yeah. Well, so on that note,
we'll get an expert in and do an episode on this.
Exactly. We should definitely get an expert on this. But leading up to that,
and maybe
Sanket, if you or if anybody else out there is a self-declared anime or manga expert or enthusiast enough,
or if someone else has declared it, that's cool. If you have awards, that's fine. Then even better.
Then please present them. You should totally write into us if you have any interest in writing an article about it, because we are in the process of really ramping up our releases of articles regularly. It was pretty irregular for the past couple of months just because we've spent a lot of time just focusing on the podcast and getting this ship running. So now that we have that, we are looking to really hone in on our editorial blog and things like that. So we are constantly looking for people to write for us. So
reviews, editorials, all fair game.
anime, the one thing that we can do with all of the help in the world. So please do write in if you have any such interest. So thanks again for writing in, guys. So now we are going to move swiftly to an event that we were just at. By we, I mean Dinkar and Tejas. I was unavailable for this past weekend's IGX, which is the Indian Games Expo. Took place in Cuff Parade. So you guys were there for what, like maybe
we went
full
in
afternoon,
on,
right? For like a good couple hours.
On day one.
On day one.
Yep. So you were there last year.
I was not there last year either. I haven't been. Yeah, I missed both of them.
Oh yes, I remember now. Well, good event. Great place. It was a slightly smaller venue than last year, and we went in, checked it out, and we had some thoughts which we discussed in the car ride on the way back.
Great. So
let's give that a listen.
Let's hear it.
So, hi Dinkar.
Hey Tejas, what's up?
Right, so we're on our way back from IGX 2016. For those of you who don't know, IGX is Indian Games Exhibition. And this is our second edition.
Exhibition with an X, right?
Yeah, with an X, yeah. It's like X-Men, Charles Xavier. No, actually, no, those all begin with
They
X.
begin with an X. As does exhibition.
Yeah.
It's like Exhibit, the Pimp
rapper.
My Ride guy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, the rapper. Wow, is he known more for Pimp My Ride than rapping now?
Yo, dog, I heard you like rapping.
Yeah.
So I put all the rapping in your car.
Exactly. So
IGX then.
IGX. This is our second edition. We went there last year. It was at the Goregaon Exhibition Center.
Yeah, so a new venue this year, World Trade Center in South
Cuff
Bombay.
Parade. Oh my gosh, very far from everything and everyone, unless you live here.
Yeah.
Which
And
in
well,
which
then
case,
can afford all the games.
we're looking for investors. All right, but so thoughts on what did you think of last year's as compared to this year? Oh, sorry, this year's compared to last year.
I felt it was slightly smaller physically to start with, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely smaller than last year.
Though I didn't see anything missing.
From the last year?
They had all the same elements. They had the walls of PlayStations. They had pretty much the same stalls.
Yeah, PlayStation pretty much owns IGX here in India. It's like they have they have the biggest exhibition.
There was one tiny Xbox stall.
Yeah.
That was also selling PlayStations.
Yeah, it was so sad. I mean, like, there's absolutely no Microsoft presence here because there was no Asus selling their gear. Like, there was Alienware. There was like pretty much everything else except for Microsoft, which was quite interesting. So that happened. They had, as usual, they were exhibiting like all the latest games which are out, which was not really what we went for. We went for two things. One was the Indian game developers who had there was a separate stall for them for about 4 games, of which we tried 2, and that's because 2 of the exhibitors were not even present. Yeah, which was quite a disappointment, to be honest.
They had other stuff to do, I suppose.
No, but like,
maybe they were waiting in line somewhere else.
Yeah, but dude,
they should have been there. You gotta have like a tag team situation happening where you're like, alright, I'm gonna step out, you handle this.
Exactly, and if they're there to kind of pimp their rides, I mean, like, to really exhibit their product, they should have definitely been there. And because of that, we didn't try out 2 games which seemed pretty interesting. One was, Asura was a game that was that's come out by
Ogre Fall Media?
Ogre something media, and it looked really interesting. It looked like an Indian version of Diablo. I think that's the best way to describe it. And the other thing that was there was this game,
which is what an Asura is.
What? An Indian
version of the devil,
the devil. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So it looked a demon.
Demon. Yeah. So it looked really interesting. It looked really good. The graphics were very, very competitive.
Yeah. It had this like nice retro-y sort of look to it. Like an early 90s PC game.
It looked great.
It looked good.
It looked really great. In fact, it would have been even better if it was an iOS game or like an iPad game, something like that. But it's there for PC. So we tried that out. I mean, we didn't. We saw it. It looked pretty
but it looks
impressive. There was another game which was a point-and-click adventure. But again, I can't tell you much about it because there wasn't anybody at the desk, and the only person who was there was playing the game. So I don't know if he was like playing his own game or he seemed really uninterested. So that was a bit of a disappointment. The other game which we did try was a mobile game called Dodgefall.
Yes.
And
a studio called Roosh.
Roosh, yeah. Which seemed like the only guys who were there to kind of do their job.
Yeah, there was like a whole panel of them, and they were engaging with us and stuff.
Exactly. So we played that. pretty interesting. You can check it out on our Instagram page.
It wasn't bad at all.
It wasn't bad.
Like,
it was quite interesting.
Very clean, good mechanics.
Yeah.
And the 2-player mode,
Yeah.
I don't know, I haven't played a lot of racing games on
it was a
mobile,
2-player
so
function on a single phone, which is actually a good way to kill time.
That 2-player function, I didn't realize that was possible, but it's really cool and really fun.
It was quite
and
interesting.
like you were saying, it gives you this like old school Game Boy vibe.
Yeah, it had a very Game Boyish vibe, so that was cool. So the second and the most important thing that we actually attended for was obviously PlayStation VR. The first time it's being exhibited in India, it's at IGX. So we stood in line and we were supposed to actually go in the morning for a preview,
like a media
preview, but we were too lazy. So we got there late, and because of that, we stand in a couple of lines.
The pains we take for you guys.
Exactly. But not bad at all.
Yeah.
PlayStation VR is very good. Like, it's really not uncomfortable to wear. I don't think you could do it for
was
more than...
surprisingly comfortable actually.
Yeah.
And it's not very heavy.
Yeah, because if you just check out the photos of it, it's like it's quite a big
very
contraption.
Bulky,
yeah.
but it's not heavy at all.
Yeah.
It's got like some padding, so it doesn't poke you in any way.
It's a snug fit compared to the because the only other VR thing I played and used is a Google Cardboard, which is literally cardboard on your nose. Oh my god!
And I tried it with my glasses on, and that was absolutely fine. Like you can't even tell.
Yeah. So we tried 2 games. We tried Ocean's Descent, which was like just a PlayStation VR.
I don't think you can call it a game.
Yeah, it was not a game. It was an experience.
It was a moment in time.
Yeah, basically you're in a kind of a shark tank, like basically
a diving cage.
Yeah, diving cage, and there's like sharks, and they try and attack you, and it's supposed to basically create a. I wonder if they have like a DualShock version of the VR headset, like which would shake your head or something. I don't know.
Well, because during the Ocean's Descent thing, because it was that wooden platform floating and people were walking around, it did vibrate once in a while, and I was like, "How's that happening?"
Exactly.
Before I realized what was happening.
Because I think that's the next. And the other thing was that I wish there was like very like that book. What was that book called?
The Bible.
No, what is it? Ready Player One.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I wish it was like Ready Player One, where there's like, haptic gloves, where you could literally just reach out and do stuff. Because that would make it like, because, once you're immersed in this world, you should feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And taking the controller in your hand kind of takes it away from that, I feel. That was my only kind of
Yeah,
thing.
which is, I suppose that's where the Kinect VR probably has an advantage, where you can actually like move.
Or maybe like even the PlayStation Move, which they have.
Yeah.
So that was one.
So like the mechanics of it have to be sort of figured out.
Yeah, I think it's still the best thing I've ever seen in VR. So far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was, in spite of this, like in spite of like these minor quibbles, it was very immersive.
Yeah, it was really immersive. And so the next one that we played, which was like the big one, which everybody was pretty much in line for, was Arkham VR, which is the Batman Arkham series, but done in VR. And it was quite awesome, man. Like there was a story there, and you are playing.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, roughly whatever we can tell you from the 2 acts that we played. So separated into 3 acts, we both played like 2 different segments of each act, or different scenes. Dinkar, you played the one in
the
Manor. Yeah, so it's a little difficult to kind of get used to. So why don't you just tell them what happened?
Well, so for starters, you can't move in the game, which took me like a good 6 minutes to realize. At first I was like, oh, maybe it's because Alfred is talking to me and I have to stay in one place. But no, you can't move. You've got to, you hit triangle to skip between areas, basically.
Yeah, so basically you like kind of teleport between areas, like and just like short distances, so you can move around the house like that, which is kind of a fail, I'd say.
Because again, like since you're in such a realistic setting, teleporting kind of pulls you out of it.
Yeah, it does pull you out of it. But the rest of it, like the actual immersive environment, it's like you're Batman in the Wayne Manor.
It is so great.
It's cool. It's
that loading screen, just where you're on top of a building in the middle of Gotham City.
Yeah, you're on GCPD.
No, GCPD is behind you.
Yeah, behind you, and you can see the city.
Yeah, that was
God.
awesome.
It's so cool. That's really cool.
So great loading screens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the manner, so it took me a little bit to figure out the mechanics of the whole thing. So I was literally like picking items up and then throwing them away. So Alfred tells me like, all right, you've got to meet me downstairs. I have something very important to tell you. Here's the key. I take the key and I'm like, cool. Then I throw it down.
Because you didn't know what to do with it. And it's like, he just kept picking up stuff. Like there was this really nice, like engraved box with the word Martha written on it, which I thought his mother's pearls would be. And he picks it up and he just promptly drops it. And it's like, bang, on the floor. And just like, oh my God.
It's like that Lonely Island song.
So
I threw it on the ground.
It's so disrespectful. So, But anyway, so that was, and you didn't make it to the Batcave, did you?
I did not. At some point, the telephone starts ringing behind me, and in surround sound. So I turn around, I pick up the telephone, and it's Alfred saying, like, Master Wayne, I am waiting for you downstairs. And I'm like, cool, threw the telephone on the ground.
So that was hilarious. I had actually a scene which I really don't want to talk about because it has some major spoilers. Major spoilers. Death of a very, very prominent character in the Arkham series. And I was just looking at this.
What act were you playing in? Was it Act 2?
I played Act 2 because I really wanted to see what was the fighting mechanism, because I'd seen the previous guy do like a Batcave-ish kind of scene or whatever. So I just didn't want to... I wanted to do something where I was just Batman in the Batsuit doing something.
Yeah.
So I went... So basically it's the murder of somebody you're very close to, and it's really disappointing, and I was thrown into this spoiler just like without knowing, and that sucked. So it kind of goes to the end. Basically you have to use detective mode like you have in like the previous games, and find out how he was murdered, and that can give you clues. Except while I was in the middle of it, my headphones and my VR gear was just very unceremoniously just taken off my head, saying, "Are you done? Are you done? Okay, cool. All right, see ya." And
it was just like, I mean, they're not rough about it, but it's just a sudden like, all right, that's it.
Yeah, it's like waking up a child.
I feel like Ocean Descent as well, which is the first game we played, probably had more to it. Because I was getting like these transmissions in my headset the entire time from the ship that audio, sent me down, saying like, "Oh my God, there's something big down there. There's something big down there." And then they just pull it off. I'm like, "But what's the big thing, man?"
Yeah, I guess I
could pick it up and throw it on the ocean floor.
So, yeah, man, it was pretty cool. I gotta say, PlayStation VR definitely has a future. I don't know, is Microsoft doing anything else competitive with that? I don't think so, right? Xbox, I'm sure it has. Kinect, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, but anyway, so that was IGX this year. Yeah, I wish it was bigger, and I wish there were more like
I wish the Indian games had more like proper stations
more
for starters.
Man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the proper station
they were all
also
clubbed together in one booth. They had some space, but it was basically just one setup called Made in India.
Pretty much.
Which is, I mean, that's a shame. Ideally, there should be like a bunch of, and when we played the mobile game, this guy like literally, I think, gave us his personal phone.
Yeah, he's like just like they should have like you know the ones which are set up on those rigs.
Exactly.
Yeah, to kind of play. Yeah,
like a bunch of them, so you can just like the way PlayStation is set up, and like part of the reason PlayStation probably owns the entire space is because they just have like giant walls of like
money,
PlayStation after PlayStation.
Dude, no, and they have like so much money to kind of just like invest in this kind of stuff.
So, but come on, I'm sure
they need to
subsidize like four phones to play a game, or like a clearer, and like it wasn't even a booth really. It was two tables.
It was two
set
tables,
up in a corner.
pretty much. If cost is the thing, they really need to subsidize it for Indian developers, Indian gamers. Even at Comic Con, man, like the smallest stalls that you see, like the really tiny ones, are the ones that belong to like Indian like comic book developers, publishers, and that's like it's so disheartening, you know, because you have these merch stalls which are huge, which you can purchase online. You can get like 300,000 like codes to get the discount for it.
Exactly.
But people still
they're not even cheaper at the cons usually.
Yeah, it's strange. So yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment. But the fact that IGX is still trudging along, not bad. I'd like to go back again next year and see a bigger variety. Yeah.
Just a couple of things.
Yeah.
First of all, the cosplay. The three guys we saw at the end looked pretty legit.
Yeah, there were 4 cosplayers for the cosplay.
I think we might have come in too early for the cosplay.
Yeah. Also, we're here on day 1, so that's probably it.
Yeah, pretty early on day 1. When we were at the food court and like this lady
seemed to have a pretty good footfall.
Solid footfall there. They had poutine, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was talking to the guy at the stall when suddenly this lady runs in and is like, "Do you guys have a straw?" And he's like, "No, we're a poutine stall." So no. And she's like, "My friend is in a very complicated cosplay and he needs to drink some water." And I'm like, "Oh shit, that is, I mean, that's terrible, man."
That's the first time I've heard of something like that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Also, the ratio of women to men.
Women to men. Yeah, this is an important point. So
approximately 506 to 1.
to 1. But you know what? Towards the end, I saw a lot more girls like coming in.
That's great.
Basically, there were 2 types of girls, and this is nothing against girls. There are plenty of gamers I know, but it just didn't show up, man. They didn't show up, and I didn't see many of them, and they were either with their... I don't think they were with their boyfriends, that's for sure. Because
why would a gamer have a girlfriend?
Yeah, also true. Yeah. Also true.
Unless it's in PlayStation VR.
Yeah, so all the assistants who were working on the PlayStation stall were all girls. So I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
That's the tradition of the booth babe.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
And like
Yeah,
any
pretty much,
con, you have a
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
girl
much.
at the booth to draw people in.
Well, we wanted
you
let's-
don't need that for PlayStation VR.
Let's change. I mean, like keep the booth babe. That's fine. But then also have like a bodybuilder with his job. That's how you'll get all the girl gamers there. I don't know, man.
I mean, like girl gamers, just like
Show
you're
up
out
in-
there. We
show
know you're
up
out
in
there.
numbers, man. Come on. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're done.
Yep.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes speaks its head overground. But there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
All right, welcome back, guys. So we are talking about Inferno. I can't believe we're doing this.
Oh,
I'll
I
be totally
can't
honest,
believe this movie exists.
This is really just an excuse for me to talk about Tom Hanks.
And go.
I love that man with all my heart. He should be the president of my life.
He should.
And my father, my grandfather, my brother, my best friend.
He's great. Who doesn't love Tom Hanks? He's amazing.
A fool, that's who.
That is true.
Anywho. So yeah, we saw this movie. We were cringing so much the second we sat down in our seats that we genuinely were kind of hoping that the movie was dubbed in Hindi.
Yeah.
Because we walked into the theater, and we saw the poster was in Hindi, which confused us greatly.
Yeah. Inferno.
What was the tagline?
Maut ki aag or something like that. It was pretty terrible.
Oh man! So you've seen the prequels, right?
Yes.
The prequels, Jesus.
The previous two.
The previous
so this is
two.
the third installment in the
Yeah.
franchise. First was the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
Which came out at a great time when everyone was still excited about these books. Then Angels and Demons, which was... Angels and Demons was basically the book that you'd read after the Da Vinci Code and then go to your friends and go like, oh, you've only read the Da Vinci Code? Not Angels and Demons? So, also interesting. Then Inferno, which is probably the least popular book of the lot.
Yeah.
And also, it's coming out at a time when no one cares. Why is this movie here?
Is Digital Fortress part of the series?
I think, if I remember correctly, that doesn't have Robert Langdon in it. It's another dude. It's part of the series in the sense that it's by the same author.
Sure.
But no, it's not connected at all. So
Yeah.
is this the last one? I don't know. Hopefully.
Okay.
But man, Tom Hanks, Ron Howard,
Yeah.
they're back with movie number 3 based on a novel from Dan Brown.
Yeah.
And Dan Brown, not the most compelling author you could do an adaptation of. I get making Da Vinci Code because, again, it was a very off-the-moment zeitgeisty kind of movie, especially with the time it came out. I get Angels and Demons because it was actually not a bad book. I mean, they're fun thriller, airplane read types.
Right.
But here we are, watching Inferno. So Inferno is about a very Elon Musk-esque character, I thought, called Zobrist. I feel
pretty
like
much.
he was set up as a parody of, well, not a parody, but like an allusion to your tech entrepreneurs like...
Tech mogul.
A tech mogul. Like a Steve Jobs, in fact, with those speeches he was giving and whatnot.
Like an evil stock.
Yes. So this guy is basically the villain who we find out through the course of the first half of the movie is intent on unleashing a deadly virus upon the world to wipe out half the population because he believes like the Black Plague, which wiped out half our population, is what created the Renaissance, and we're suffering from overpopulation right now. So we've got to get rid of half the people.
Very Bond villain of it.
Very Bond villain, especially with his setup.
Who was the guy that played the villain in Tomorrow Never Dies? I forget his name.
Your Diamond Face guy?
Not Diamond Face guy. Old British man. I forget. Anyway, whatever. Very similar to Bond villains.
Yes, very similar to Bond villains in the plot and in the way he implements it, which is to leave a series of complicated clues that would lead anyone with a basic understanding of art history to the end point. So, we begin the movie with Tom Hanks in a hospital being awoken by Felicity Jones, his a doctor.
But let me just stop you right there.
Yeah.
We haven't said spoiler alert.
If only you'd said this while we were watching the movie.
We haven't said spoiler alert, but then again, I don't feel bad about ruining this movie for you.
Spoiler alert,
if
this
only
movie
as
sucks.
a warning to like not. I think listening to this podcast for 1 hour is a far better use of your time than 2 hours of this movie.
That is
so
true.
I think we're doing you a service by just summing up this movie for you, and we'll do our best. Let's just try this. It's going to be very easy to hate on this movie.
Yes.
Let's do your best to only speak in the positives.
All right.
Go.
I felt very positive that this movie ended. It begins actually with, I was actually going to start with the positive because I kind of like how it starts with Tom Hanks awaking in a hospital. He's just been shot, apparently. Felicity Jones is waking him up and telling him, and he's like, what? I was shot? And she's like, yeah. And I've called the police. The police turn up, this policewoman, who starts shooting at them again. So they run out. And Felicity Jones is like, what's happening? Why are they shooting at you? Why are we running? And Tom Hanks does not know. So he keeps having these visions. Some very, those visions were pretty interesting. He sees these, flashes of hell with, sinners and people burning in Black Plague and whatnot. Really well done. Genuinely spooky. And he keeps getting flashes of what happened over the past few days in, various jumbled up ways to sort of figure out what's happening. So I like that device, which lasts for about the first hour of the movie probably, until you finally piece together where we are in terms of a linear timeline.
Right.
I like that. I thought it was an interesting way to do it. It hadn't been done in the previous two movies. It had this very Memento, Born Identity-esque.
The whole movie kind of screamed all the usual traits of movies like World War Z or your zombie apocalypse kind of movies, just sans zombies. And the zombies were all in his head. That being said, I agree completely that the visual treatment of this movie was actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was a little unexpected for me being a Ron Howard movie, because Ron Howard's a bit more of a straight shooter when it comes to things like this.
True.
But there were also moments where, I'm going to try to maintain in the positives here, but there were moments where there were these GoPro mounted shots that were very much like Justin Lin from a Fast and the Furious movie, because arguably more so than the first couple movies, this movie was a lot more action-y.
Yes,
not
definitely.
so much in any big explosions or whatnot. There was a whole lot of foot chases. The movie's one big long foot chase pretty much.
Yes.
But just from a visual viewpoint, it was very fast-paced that way, really interesting shot selections, and there were a lot of people falling to their death that were really, really brutal. This movie was significantly gorier and made you wince when people were being mutilated or being, stabbed to death or whatever. This movie was a lot more hardcore in that regard, and a lot less talky.
There are gasp moments in there.
There are a lot of them, and I guess
I'll tell you why.
It's a good thing.
Here's the weird thing.
I mean, maybe
every time someone falls, so usually there's a very blockbuster treatment of a person falling that you'd expect, which is someone falls and then you don't really see the impact.
You
and
just hear the sound. Yeah.
You don't. Yeah. And even that sound is this dramatized kind of kind of thing, not like a dull thud, like a donk, which is what you get in this movie. Yeah. Plus, as they fall, they bump into stuff, which always hurts so much more, because it's not like it's like a thonk. And you're like, oh, that's gotta hurt.
True. So this movie definitely upped the ante in that regard. Now, I will say, the one thing, I'm going to put on my old man hat about this, which I've done so many times before. One of my biggest pet peeves watching movies in the theater is when they have subtitles. I cannot stand it.
Yes.
And this movie did when we saw it as well. And I really think that this particular style of movie was incredibly shortchanged by having subtitles on it, because I think the whole premise of this kind of a story, this Robert Langdon art history, giving you a big giant lecture every 30 seconds, the whole point is that the audience member is completely a noob to what he's going on about. So you're in the same shoes as, say, Felicity Jones's character, in that he's mumbling on about like, oh, you don't know so-and-so and yada yada, and Dante's blah, 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 and when back in the 1600s, yada, yada, yada. You're not supposed to have any idea, you're not supposed to be able to keep up with him.
Yes.
But the fact that everything he was saying was written out in front of us, it made it so much more digestible to me.
Yeah.
So everything he was saying just seemed matter of fact.
Correct.
It wasn't like I was being given gyan by some Yoda-esque character that like knows everything about everything, right? So I was always 100% with him, which I don't think is at all where the audience should be. So all I was personally drawn to when I saw it with my viewing experience was just the action. Because all the talking, which was pivotal, absolutely pivotal, was completely thrown out the window. There was no mystery to it. And I distinctly recall there's a moment where the two of them find the mask of Dante hidden inside this thing, and on the back of it they realize, oh, if you wipe it off with water, like there's some scripture written behind it, and like it's another big clue, one of like the 100 clues they have to find. And the clue is a big inscription, which is maybe like 3 sentences long, and the fact that he was reading it out really slowly makes complete sense, because he's wiping it off. He's like, oh, Mary had a little lion. I thought it was a lamb. Oh my God. And she killed it. What? So he's reading it like one word at a time as he's reading it out. But then we're seeing it in these subtitles.
Yeah.
All the way there, and just going, why are you reading so slow? Can't you read the subtitle as quick as I am? Like, that just bugged me to no end. And so the entire movie, like, everything he was saying just didn't really keep me gripped at all, because towards the end, as things get revealed and he sort of figures stuff out, a random clue that he found maybe 1 hour ago in the movie, he now says, aha, and he repeats the same mumbo jumbo that he said back then, which made no sense to you, but now that he's in the space where whatever the clue is, it all makes that much more sense to the audience. Like, oh wow, that crap that he was babbling on about before, this is it. It's the typical like Sherlock Holmesian kind of a thing.
Yes.
But again, I just went, I know exactly what this is, because he said it back then.
Because I read it, yeah.
So
it doesn't make sense for the devices in the movie.
It completely ruined it.
If it's an anagram and you see it written out, that kind of kills the point.
Absolutely.
Because it's way easier to figure out.
Exactly.
And also, I think a lot of the art history aspects of it, so the hook for Dan Brown novels has always been that you supposedly, at least you feel like you're getting all this knowledge of like, oh, the Illuminati, and this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where the word assassin comes from, and like, that's what Dante's whole life was like, where apparently he had a lover and blah, 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 blah. So you're supposed to be like finding out about that, getting like this whole information dump and going like, I must be smart for reading this book.
Yeah.
Which you don't get here because there's not that much context. Because like here it's basically like, whereas in the book you'd have like 3 pages about like, well, this was the story of Dante's life and this was how he pined away and died. Whereas here, Tom Hanks will basically like look at the mask and go like, oh yeah, must be about his girlfriend, huh?
Pretty much. Okay. Irfan Khan.
Oh yeah, the brightest spot in the movie. The most positive of the positive things. I thought he was absolutely
such a
great.
Pleasant surprise.
Yeah. He was the perfect level of, not really scene chewing, but he looked very like, I am having fun being here.
Yeah. So, funny enough, as we were watching it with our friend Malvika as well, and she leaned over to me at one point. She's like, "Why is Irfan Khan in this?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "He's been in so many of these movies. Why is he the only one that gets in these movies?" And the simple answer that I had at the time, at least, is that Hollywood found an Indian actor to meet their quota. Found somebody that's well known in India, somebody that they can work with well, somebody that is veteran enough that he can perform in front of camera quickly enough that you don't have to like prep the guy too much because he's used to this environment. And most importantly, he fits the Indian quota. He looks very Indian. He sounds Indian. He can act pretty well. Let's just throw him into everything because he's
a great actor. I think so.
But not so much in. I haven't really enjoyed his roles too much in the Hollywood movies I've seen him in. He was fine in Slumdog because he played pretty much a regular Indian guy, which he is. But then, like in say Jurassic World,
he was cool. He wasn't great, but he was okay. I love the fact that he was in it though. It wasn't much of a role, so I don't blame it on him.
I think that role could have been handled better. Like he could have made that role better because he was basically playing the new John Hammond, right? Which is an epic shoe to fill. And, the expectation when the park is reopened, who's it being run by? And he drops references to Hammond. He's like, Hammond left this thing for us to handle, and I am now responsible. He's like, well, cool. So you're saying you're the new John Hammond. You better friggin' act like it. And he was fine. I'm not saying he was bad. I'm just saying that there was a lot more he could have done.
Maybe. But in this movie, for example,
but to get back to the positive, I thought he did a great job in this movie. And like you said, he looked like he was having fun.
Yeah.
And I think it felt to me that like he had sort of fully accepted this whole thing that like, I'm the guy that these guys are going to call. Like friggin' Ron Howard's called me. Steven Spielberg is in my back pocket. Like,
which is honestly why he gets so many roles, I think, is he's a great actor and he must have a great agent.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since the Meera Nar movie that he did.
Which one was that?
He's in Namesake.
Namesake, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which he's amazing in.
Right.
Which must have, like, so basically it's the Hollywood system of like, oh my god, this guy's an amazing dramatic actor who can like pull off amazing things on screen.
Yeah.
Which that movie definitely is.
Yeah.
Like, it'll change your perception of...
Absolutely.
Like, he's one of the greats.
Yeah.
So they look at that and go like, that's amazing, I love this guy. Let's get him an agent and make him the Indian guy and everything.
Pretty much, exactly. Yeah. So he kind of it just felt to me that he sort of accepted his tokenism of being that guy. He's like, I'm here.
What I love
I'm just gonna milk it,
what is
and
great
let me in.
now is that he's the Indian guy, but it's never like defined in like a, hey, this is the Indian guy kind of way.
Yeah. He
like,
hasn't fallen into tropes.
Yes, he's called Mr. Sims in this movie,
right?
Which is not even I've never heard of Mr. Sims.
Yeah. What was
so
he
maybe
called
he's
in
not
Jurassic
even
World?
Indian. Maybe.
There's another like really bizarre name.
Yeah, but not an Indian name. So, and there's never any mention of like, hey, this guy's Indian. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, like the dry humor and sarcasm in his voice in this one was just great.
It was amazing.
I really wish we could have heard him swear.
Oh, one of my favorite moments in the movie was when
shit.
What
did he say? What was the line?
He says tits up.
Tits up, yes.
Tom Hanks is like, but why would you do that? And he's like, so that when everything goes tits up. And I was like, oh my god, we should stand up and clap. That is amazing. I never thought I'd see that happen.
Yeah, so they censored out him dropping an F-bomb, which would have been great because he did an F-bomb with like a full like hands up in the air, like cursing the world and the stars above. He's like, why the blah? Anyway. These are my dreams.
But yeah, he was great.
He was great. He was hilarious in it. So that was great to see. But yeah, anything else about this movie that sort of saved it? I mean, we walked into it knowing that this is probably going to be one of the worst Tom Hanks movies ever, but Tom Hanks will still be really good.
And we were
Would
not
you
let
agree?
down.
He was still.
He was okay. I'm sorry, but even Tom Hanks could not elevate this movie to the level that it could have been at, because I feel like the story isn't bad.
You think it could have been a better movie?
I actually think so. Yeah, like it's not a bad story. I'm not saying like it's going to change the world.
It's your generic, zombie
it could very easily
kind of thing.
Yeah, but like I just feel like the treatment of it was so like no one gave a crap making the movie. Like I'm so sure Ron Howard was just like handing off huge chunks of the movie to his first AD, going like, you know what, you handle this scene, and then just like walks away, because it doesn't feel like a Ron Howard movie.
Absolutely,
it doesn't
nothing
feel,
about it feels Ron Howard.
It barely feels directed. Forget directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah.
And like I love that guy. He's a great director. So what is happening? And he's got like a great sense of humor. He's got like a really light touch, which was sorely missing in this movie. It could very easily have been something like a National Treasure, which is like a fun like run around, like it's actiony.
Yeah.
It's got a similarly like complicated historically involved plot, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
This wasn't fun.
True. But
my biggest gripe with this movie.
But I think that's also because of the nature of the subject matter being like this whole art history lesson.
Yeah, but then like
it's inherently boring.
Yeah.
So you need to like throw in some really cool deaths.
But
and Irfan Khan
could have been fun.
National
Treasure, there's no reason for it to be fun. It's about like the Declaration of Independence and blah blah, and yet it's fun.
Yeah, true, that's true.
Or like Night at the Museum in a way, where it deals with like historic stuff, but okay, that's pretty different.
That's a whole other
that's a whole other space.
Well, okay, so on that note though, so speaking of could this movie have been more fun and whatnot, so let's just look at the kind of not really the genre, but again the subject matter, not speaking to, or I guess maybe the setting is the best word to say. Yeah, let's look at the setting. So a lot of things in this movie, especially right from the word go, when we saw what was the name? Zobrist.
Yes.
We saw his death falling from that tower. Like the very first opening shots were screaming Assassin's Creed, and obviously it's set in Italy and stuff, right? So like a whole lot of this had a lot of those things. At any given point, we're like, who's gonna like activate Eagle Vision and do the leap of faith? So, on that note, so like we say that this movie was kind of phoned in. It was just a way to make some money because, it seemed like an easy one.
Is it though? Why do they need to make money? Maybe it's an excuse to holiday in Italy, basically.
Well, yeah, a bit of both, basically. It's a way for the studio to make some money. And I think that would you agree that it's piggybacking on the Game of Thrones / Assassin's Creed coming out soon? All these medieval themed movies where they were just like, they could have easily just ended it at Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
They're like, fine, let's just test out a sequel. They tried the sequel. They're like, all right, that did as well as we could have hoped it would do.
Yeah.
The trilogy was never, ever on anybody's radar. Nobody ever uttered a word being like, hey, Ron, you should totally like turn this Da Vinci Code thing into a trilogy. I don't think that would have been like discussed at the first draft for that script meeting. You know what I mean? I
agree that.
This is definitely an afterthought. And
or maybe,
do you think it's because of the whole medieval sort of trend that they're trying to, piggyback off of?
Well, I don't know. The book was written a while ago.
Right, yeah, but
before the trend, probably.
No, the book was definitely before the trend, but I mean the fact that let's turn this another medieval story into film because people like watching knights kill each other and they like that whole...
Basically, it's the same logic behind every franchise where it's like, hey, they like the first two, so like let's put in one more. I'm just wondering, so I'm looking up, this was produced by Imagine Entertainment, which is Grazer and Howard.
Yeah.
But like, who's the studio putting in the money, I wonder? Because what I suspect, I just came up with this theory, is that Tom Hanks and Ron Howard were contractually obligated to knock this movie out. Because it kind of feels like that. So maybe they signed on for Da Vinci Code because it seemed like a fun movie to do, but they were locked in for 3 pictures.
From day one, you think?
I mean, it's possible. Like, Marvel does like 10-year contracts and shit. Well, not year, but there's a number of movies that you have to put out. So maybe it's that.
Marvel's different. Marvel has a game plan.
But most studios do this now, where you're locked in for like a couple of sequels, and since everyone's hoping to basically start a franchise.
Sure. Well, if that's true, if you want to compare the two, then I think the payoff between any of the comic book guys, be it DC, Marvel, or anybody else, they're thinking, 10 years down the line because they know that these characters need to complete a very overarching arc to all meet at the same point and all eventually fight this one guy who's going to only show up 5 movies later, blah, blah, blah. They have all these things planned ahead. None of these 3 movies were directly related other than the fact that it was Robert Langdon.
Other than the fact that it's the same guy.
Yeah, which is completely arbitrary. I mean, it's just, he doesn't really have to pull back on any of the previous movies' plot points, any of the previous characters he's worked with, any of the previous artifacts he studied. None of that is relevant, in any which way, shape, or form.
So this brings me to a point that Tejas and I were talking about on our way back from the movie, where he said that this film doesn't take advantage of being a franchise, which I thought was an interesting viewpoint, where he says that the movies don't feel connected, and if they were, that would have been a lot better. Like, if he saw something and went like, oh yeah, that's like something I remember from the first movie. There's no allusions, there's no direct relation in the plot.
Yeah.
But, and my counterpoint to that was, I don't know if that would have elevated this movie. If anything, it probably would have made me cringe a bit more because I'm like, ugh. I don't like this movie and you're trying to tie in like 2 others. Right. Though I think the best example of that was there's this one prominent shot of the statue of Jesus. And I feel like they should have walked by and Robert Langdon should have looked at it and gone like, hey, that's my girlfriend's grandpa.
I forgot about that.
But do you feel like if the movies were a little more connected, if they felt more like a bigger story, would that have helped?
Well, I guess we never get to know much about Robert Langdon himself. Think about it this way. This guy, between every movie, goes back to Cambridge because he's a professor there, right? Or he works there or something like that.
He teaches.
So he always starts off or ends off a movie in Cambridge, which is sort of his sanctuary. And then somehow or the other, some random guy out of the blue, either in this case, be it some megalomaniacal Elon Musk-esque character, seeks him out actively and is like, I need to get this guy so he can help my girlfriend figure out how to finish the job or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Which, just so we're clear, because I'm assuming most of you have not and will not see this movie, what happens is, so Zobrist dies off and sets his plot in motion. That's why you meet at the start of the movie. Yeah. Felicity Jones and Tom Hanks are running around trying to figure out the whole elaborate series of clues that lead you to the final virus that is about to be unleashed at midnight. Halfway through the movie, Felicity Jones turns out to have been in league with Zobrist all along. They were lovers, and he dies off and says, like, you will get the clues.
And Tom Hanks is wearing a dead man's clothes the entire time.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
It was dark. She takes him home and gives him her boyfriend's outfit and says, like, now let's go and, like, figure out all these clues. So halfway through, she has this change of heart. And, well, not a change of heart, really. She has this big reveal where she was like...
Revelation of heart.
Yeah. Hey, I was evil all along, and I kind of agree with Zobrist and everyone should die out. And then the WHO agent, who's been chasing them all along, turns out to be... A, an ex-girlfriend of Robert Langdon's, and B, well, at least romantically involved. And B... she's one of the good guys because she wants to stop the virus. At first, you're like, well, she's chasing him and shooting at our hero, so she must be bad.
I've seen this movie and I've already lost you.
Yeah,
so
it's fine company.
Forget it. Okay, cool.
Just one thing though,
what?
Why is the WHO more powerful than like the Like
this is true. The WHO
like the
has
CIA.
more guns than like the military. It's scary. Anywho, so let's be done with this. I would not recommend this movie to my worst enemy.
Wait, I just want to get your opinion on Tom Hanks in the movie though.
What? I mean,
I mean, are you disappointed in him?
Yeah, but I was disappointed in him when I knew he was doing the movie. I mean, like,
yeah, that's true.
So there was no winning. He made it infinitely better than it could have been had it been sans Tom Hanks, but that doesn't save the movie.
Yes.
Because
if it wasn't for the fact that it's Tom Hanks, we wouldn't have watched this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Not
like I said,
close.
this is solely an excuse to just talk about Tom Hanks.
Yes.
All right. So
Felicity Jones, what did you think of?
She was fine.
I actually thought she was really bad.
It's I just can't forget about the movie.
Blame it
like,
on the role,
exactly,
maybe, because but like the scene where she has a change of heart, for example, is just a terrible piece of everything, filmmaking, acting. Like the camera basically just lingers on her eyes widen, like she's suddenly remembering she's evil, and she goes like, aha, I'm evil now, and like she shuts the gate on Tom Hanks, and he's like, what? So bad. Which is a shame, but we're going to see her soon in Rogue One, where she will more than redeem herself, I'm sure.
Yeah, I within
and
about
she
10
can
minutes,
be a great actress in the Stephen Hawking movie. What's it? The Theory of Everything.
Yeah, and I've seen her in this little indie film called Like Crazy.
Okay.
Romantic 90-minute. Great job in that movie. Great movie. Anyway, so
yes, let's be done with this.
Yep. Okay.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
So, this week, I have something called CRISPR.
CRISPR?
CRISPR.
That sounds like an app.
It is a futuristic bioterror drama from NBC. What? Starring Jennifer Lopez.
What?
Clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats.
What do all those words mean together?
Clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's my question. So it's a procedural thriller set 5 minutes into the future that explores the next generation of terror. DNA hacking.
Okay.
Whatever that means. If the project moves forward, each episode will explore a bio-attack and crime, from a genetic assassination attempt on the president to the framing of an unborn child for murder.
This is all
The show's central
noise.
character is a scientist with the CDC who is paired with an FBI agent. In the same vein of Castle, romance will blossom between the scientist and the FBI agent as they team.
Of course.
To bring down a diabolical genius with a twisted god complex, her former boss. Dun dun
So this is a pilot? You said if the series goes forward.
Yeah, it's a pilot from NBC starring J-Lo.
All basically, of those words in that description were just white noise. Yeah. I can't even process.
So she did, what was that show that she did? The Shades of Blue.
Shades of Blue, where she's a cop, no?
Yeah, so I guess she was like, I'm done with the Made in Manhattan stuff. I now want to be like an action star, I suppose. That's what she's...
What is happening?
That's what she's trying to do.
Give me that name once again.
CRISPR. Clustered, regularly interspaced, short, palindromic repeats. This is the third time I'm saying it. I still don't know what this means.
What is that?
I still don't know what this means.
Oh, God.
Wait, let's break this down. Clustered.
Yeah. So they're all together.
They're all together, regularly interspaced.
But they're all together, but they're evenly spaced out.
Short, palindromic repeats.
This is where you lost me.
Yeah, I'm done.
They're short. How are they palindromic? Like they go the same back and forth? And they repeat.
But CRISPR is not a palindrome.
Are they talking about DNA? Like DNA is short, evenly spaced out, and it's the same backwards and forwards? I don't know. I'm not a DNA scientist. I'm no Jennifer Lopez.
It's a procedural thriller. Explores the next generation. Okay, so it's DNA hacking. Okay, so something about DNA. It explores a bio attack and crime from a genetic assassination attempt. So, is it like killing people before they're born?
I have no idea. But I feel like this might be related to DNA. And taking out the vowel, the E, really makes it sound like some kind of app. Like, hey, we're CRISPR and we make your life better by making your chips crunchier.
That would probably sell better.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you got?
I have a couple of space movies that have just been announced. For starters, Aaron Paul in a space movie. It'll be called Android by director Neil Johnson. And so Aaron Paul is set to star in Android as a lonely astronaut who decides to resurrect his dead wife and son as, wait for it, androids. Naturally, though, eventually Paul realizes his life is in danger and a battle of wits and strengths ensues when the androids begin demanding a life of their own.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Right.
I like Aaron Paul.
I'm sold. Yeah,
exactly.
I'll check it out.
Will he make meth in space, do you think? Maybe not.
No.
Anyway.
Cool. What's the other one?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, also in a space movie. It's being described as a sci-fi thriller, and he will be playing a man searching for his estranged wife on an abandoned space station. So,
cool.
I like the idea of both these movies because they've got like great charismatic stars.
Yeah.
JGL is also great. And they're original space movies, which is so good.
Such a relief.
We could use more of those.
You said it describes itself as a sci-fi thriller. Have you seen a sci-fi movie that is not a thriller lately?
No, I guess not.
We mentioned this when talking about what's the Chris Pratt and J-Lo movie that's coming out? Passengers?
I'm sorry, what? Oh, Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Passengers?
Yes.
Something like that.
I thought you said CRISPR at. Oh, God.
Be done with it. This is not a palindrome.
Yes.
No, a few episodes ago we talked about that movie for a little bit, and I recall thinking to myself when I saw the trailer for Passengers.
You wanted it to be a sci-fi rom-com.
I wanted to be a sci-fi rom-com, yeah. Or like just some sort of like an indie movie in some regard, because that trailer started off with just the two of them having a drink on the space station being served by an android bartender.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool. This is just two people and a cheeky, sassy bartender aboard a space station. This could go in so many directions. And then they were like, oh no, we're the only ones left on board. How are we going to survive? I was like, well, why is life always threatened when a movie takes place in space?
Because space is dangerous.
I know it's
dangerous.
And
no one can hear you scream
but
there.
People pay billions of dollars to ensure that people don't die in space.
Yes, this is
you know
true.
what I mean? Like that, what was that astronaut name? This Indian astronaut that Deep Purple
Kalpana Chawla you're talking about. Yeah.
Kalpana Chawla died, and that was a big thing because people don't die that often in space. Because people invest billions to ensure that if you're going to send somebody into space, they're going to be fine. Or they know how to keep themselves alive and come back to Earth before they are a danger to themselves or their mission. So I would love to see a movie set in space where nobody dies and have Judd Apatow direct it. I'll go one step further. I want to see Steve Carell and Paul Rudd and more men getting their chest waxed in space.
I feel like that could happen.
That could happen.
Like, what is the world-ending movie that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg directed?
Was that World's End?
Yeah, is it called At World's End? Because it came out at the same time as the Simon Pegg movie.
World's End is the Cornetto trilogy. This was
End of the World, something like that. It has a very similar name to the Cornetto trilogy movie, but yeah, that's what it would look like basically, like a bunch of dick jokes and the world ending.
Yeah, exactly.
Though that was more
just do it in space.
demony, but
just do it in space. Just do it in space. That's all I'm saying.
I would like that, but I also come on, space is new.
I know,
and
but it's not new anymore. It's not new anymore.
Actually, space has been around since before the Earth, believe it or not. We've
been seeing movies in space for like eons. I'm done with space explosions. Let's just have space happiness.
All right, we'll make one. Whoops, I married an android.
All right, so that is all for today, I think. Are we good? Yeah, we're good. All right, cool. There's no more talking about Inferno.
So,
never again.
Well, yeah, write into us with your favorite Tom Hanks movies. Leave Inferno out of it. Tell us if you like the books. Tell us if... tell us why this movie exists. If you're Tom Hanks or Ron Howard and you're listening, tell us why this movie exists. And, get in touch with us in general. Give us... give us the lowdown on anything you're into. Is it anime? Is it manga? Is it the Dan Brown novels? In which case, why? You can get in touch with us on contactgeekfruit@gmail.com. Or on any of the social medias, that is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat.
Pinterest.
Pinterest? Are we on Pinterest?
We should do a Pinterest.
Let's do Pinterest.
I have no idea how to use it.
Soon after this, we will have a Pinterest up as well. On all of these, it is at Geekfruit HQ.
We should make a Tinder social for Geekfruit.
Okay, cool. Sure.
That's a good idea.
There'll be like 4 of us.
That's a good idea.
Well,
anywho,
yes.
Geekfruit HQ, contact geekfruit@gmail.com and geekfruit.in. Just click that little contact button. All right. Anything else to say, Dinkar?
Goodbye.
All right. Goodbye, you nerds. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you have some time, you should also check out The Seen and the Unseen, which is a podcast hosted by writer Amit Verma, who takes a close look at the seen and the unseen aspects of various government policies.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.